Alright, so this is me building my pool here. First thing I like to do is sort everything out by color and whatnot, and then see if anything strikes out to me as like a dominant color. Right now, to me in this pool, it looks like blue seems to be the best color. Red is okay, the green is quite weak. It's just a pile of creatures, none of them are very special. This card's okay, these are fine. This is renewal, could be okay, but I am just going to eliminate green immediately and maybe come back to it if I feel it. The rares in my deck are also an important part. But exert influence here. We already got rid of a This is renewal. Gruesome Slaughter and Brood Butcher. So Ruinous Path and Exert Influence are the ones that are exciting. Blightherder can be if I have enough ways to process. This pool seems to be lacking in that though. So I'm going to go ahead and eliminate all the cards I don't really want to play. This card's okay, maybe. Black's kind of shallow. It's fine, fine. This is very fringy. And I don't want to play either of these cards either. That card's maybe. Don't really want to play that, but maybe. These cards, cards I'm putting up top, like this, are cards that I might play, but generally don't want to. And all these gold cards are great. Another thing I noticed about my pool is I do not have an Evolving Wilds, which is something I really look forward to having in a sealed deck so I can splash cards, but or get Converge online. So these colorless cards are all good, and almost certainly all of them will make my deck. Maybe only play 1 7-drop depending. The red is pretty aggressive. But it's not that good. Nettle Drones are exciting, Valid Invoker's good, the removal is Stone Fury's good, Outnumber is kind of mediocre unless you have a token theme. It's fine, but in sealed deck you're aiming to kill bigger creatures. So let's put the red aside. The black has a decent removal suite, the creatures are lacking. Mire's Malice is a good card for sealed. This white cards gives me some flyers, some removal. Evasion is important in sealed deck. The games tend to go very long, so you can just set up shop, play a bunch of defensive creatures and kill them in the air. White seems okay. I also have a Royal Spout if I end up white-blue. Now, these the Titan Presence and these two big colorless creatures are going to go very well together with the blue. So I think I'm going to try to play blue if I can. And these I'm not really interested in splashing. They're early creatures. You don't want to splash early creatures. This I could splash, but it would have to be in a blue-black deck probably, and I don't really have any fixing for it, so I have all of these lands. Blighted Woodland is a card you're only going to play if you're predominantly green. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lay out a blue-white deck and see how it looks. But I'm going to lay it out in mana curve. With the Exert Influence, if my mana is good enough, I'll consider just playing a mountain or a swamp in a blue-white deck, just so that I have the ability to steal a 3-power creature. Blight Herder is not great. I'm very limited on the ways to process, and it's going to be better than this, especially with the Titan's presence. This deck looks medium. I'm counting the cards to see how many I have. I ideally want to play 18 land in this format because there's a lot of expensive spells and spells that scale, like the Awaken spells. This deck looks very mediocre. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at the black and then maybe the red. So I'm gonna try to combine it with the blue at first because those cards seem to be my better commons. And right. Ruinous Path is the best card in my pool, so I would like to use it, but the support just doesn't seem to be there necessarily. This is 20 cards, so I'd have to add some mediocre cards to it, potentially, or splash a color. I could splash the Brood Butcher. I could splash like Angel of Renewal or something, or Royal Spout. But I think this looks worse than the blue-white deck to me. So now I'm going to go and check the red real quick. I do get that. This is kind of here. Outnumber is much better in a deck with a good mana curve. In this deck, it's going to likely be a shock where you play a 3-drop, then a 3-drop and a shock, which is playable, but it's not great. Yeah, this deck's just lacking in removal and stuff. I think blue-white is just going to be give me the best chance to play a long game, which is generally what's going to happen in sealed deck. And this deck just doesn't seem to have just a bunch of 3-drops. So let's look at the blue-white again and see if we can improve it. Ultimate just focus isn't great. Now, I have a lot of spells in this deck. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's 14 creatures. It's a lot of Awaken. So the spells scale well, so having a bunch of high drops isn't as good because I have a lot of ways to sink my mana later. This card isn't terrific in this deck. Could certainly see cutting this. Blight Herder it's just a 5-mana 4/5. Occasionally I'll be able to pair it with the Infiltrator and trigger it, so that's good. So it's probably worth still playing, especially with the Titan's presence. Reclaimer has the same issue as Mercstrider, but it's a little higher impact, I think, because I have all these good spells. So that when I do process, and it's great with Titan's presence. So I think 21, 22. I think I'd like to play something like this, 22 lands, or 22 spells, 18 lands. Then you have the options of these lands, especially when I have higher end stuff and Awaken spells. I don't like to play too many of them because I don't want my 6th or 7th land coming to play tapped when I need to play these spells. You just lost the whole turn. That said, I do have this Slab Hammer, which I could consider playing, but I don't really want to play that in a deck that has all these high-end spells either. But it does combo well with this, so it's something to consider. But I think I would max out at just playing one of these lands. And the last thing I need to decide is if I want to play an off-color land for this, or maybe even just splash something because of this. Now I'm looking at my deck, I have no double-colored spells, so I could play something like a 2/8/8 mana base, and that's gonna be fine. So I should decide if there's something worth splashing in my pool. The red, there's nothing. Like Outnumber would be the closest thing, not great. Valakut Invoker is splashable because it is pretty high impact later in the game. Then there's these removal spells that are splashable. Ruinous Path unfortunately isn't. Oracle of Dust we'll put up here. Green cards, I don't think there was anything. Just make sure there was nothing here that I wanted to play. Yeah, it's possible I just want to splash something like a Demon's Grasp or Complete Disregard. More likely Complete Disregard for the reason that I have these things that I want to be able to process with. So I think I'm going to do that. And I'm going to play an 8/8 2 mana base. Makes my Exert Influence a lot better. Now I want to look over all these spells and make sure I need them. The creatures seem fine. I might play this now that I have more ways to exile cards. But I think Royal Retribution, it's my only double card spell. I'm going to get rid of that. It's also not great. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This looks pretty close to where I want to be. The weakest creature in my deck right now is this, so I can see swapping these. Has no real ally synergies. It's just the 2/3 body to block early. This, now that I have the Disregard, Titan's Presence, it works well with those. I can play some games in a tempo manner with these if I get to bounce with this. So I think I'll make that swap. I also have no 4-drops. One of the last questions I need to answer here is, do I want to play 2 7-drops? Like I said, I have a lot of expensive spells. Bane of Balaget is definitely the better of the two. It has the ability to just take over the game. Also, I can exile permanents with it and trigger my Blightherder. So yeah, this is the last real question I need to answer. I don't really see many other cards that I want to play. So I think I might just play it. The games tend to be a lot grindier and longer in Sealed, so having more top end is usually fine. I do have a fair amount of removal to make the game go longer. The one real problem I see with this deck is it doesn't have too many walls, if you will. Well, cards like this or this that I can just block and not trade, so that when they play a bigger creature or whatever, I can just, kill that and keep their multiple little dudes off the board, like up 2/2s and whatnot. That you want to have like 2/3s, like an Incubator Drone or something, to block them, which was the role that the McKindy Patrol was going to play in this deck. So maybe I do want to go back and play that card, but it is kind of weak. Other than that, I don't want to cut any of these 2-drops because this guy has the ability to take over the game later. Also can just trade for a 2-drop, so I don't get run over. I think this is the last thing I want to question. Circling Fisher, it can be very, very good. I think it's less so in Sealed deck. People don't have many aggressive decks, token decks with Swarm Surge and whatnot. That's more of a draft thing. So I could see cutting this card, especially because I don't have creatures to really punish them for a big attack. So I think I might make this swap just so I have another creature in my deck that can hold the ground a little bit. The other card I can consider is Oracle of Dust. That also does that. These already play that role though. So I think I might not play that, which is very weird. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22. That's 22 right there. I'm going to play... lands are over here. So I'm going to end up playing... Looks like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9... Is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Yeah, I'm just going to play an 8/8. 2 mana base. and then just decide if I want to play this or not. I think I'm going to actually just lean on boarding this kind of card in against decks that have a lot of Eldrazi that you want to slow down. That's when it's really at its best, when you can, you know, blank a 7-power attack for a turn. But the curve is so high in this deck with all the Awaken and these guys that I don't want to risk not being able to play a spell on curve because I have a tap land that earlier in the game really just doesn't do that much, gains 2 life or something. And yeah, I think that's going to be the final build right there.
Hello, welcome to the sideboard here at Grand Prix Atlanta. I'm Nick Miller with Player of the Year, Mike Sigrist. How you doing, sir?
How's it going, Nick?
Good to see you here in the sideboard. We just saw you break down your sealed pool. We've seen a lot of people immediately throw away green. You did it faster than most, but you immediately kind of saw that you like blue as your base color, and then you did a couple of iterations. What in blue drew you most to that color?
Honestly, the first thing I saw was the Sky Spawners, the Clutch, and the Exert Influence, and Benthic Infiltrator and Ruination Guide are also great. Just it has solid common support, you know, cheap creatures, and some quality spells for later in the game.
And then from there we saw you pair blue with a bunch of different colors. We saw you try red, black, white, and then you came back to white. You know, what were the other colors missing that white kind of shored up?
The black was just a little too shallow. The cards that were going to fill out the deck were all 5-mana spells for the most part, and I already have a lot of those. White gave me more flexibility, like Sheer Drop and Demon's Grasp are kind of comparable. I can play this for 6 mana, but I can also play it for 3. The cheaper creatures, Fortified Rampart, cheap removal, Gideon's Reproach, all these things help the deck play a longer game, which is what I'm looking to do in sealed deck.
You're trying to just hold on. You've got a bunch of the, you got the 06, so you've got all the defense, you've got the cheap removal. You even have the Royal Sprout, which is kind of like the reason you go to blue-white.
Yeah,
plus,
absolutely.
like you mentioned, you have so much flexibility between all your Awaken spells. You have 4 of them with Clutch of Courage, Sheer Drop, Royal Spout, and Undo Rising, all very powerful in different parts of the game.
Exactly.
Now talk about, your kind of higher ground here. You got a bunch of good stuff in the middle with your Sky Spawners. You got the Patrol as well. But then you got some good payoff stuff here as well as go ahead and take us up the curve.
So later in the game, I'm going to have a lot of options of what to do, assuming I hit my land drops. That's the one concern I have with this deck. But I have like Angel of Renewal and Rune Processor. If I stumble early in terms of not making plays, but I do hit my land drops, I'm going to be able to gain some light back and hopefully stabilize from that point and win with all my powerful spells. Bane of Balaged is the absolute top, and he has the ability to take over a game. He's really good with cheap removal spells and like bounce, because you can. They usually have to try to double block him, like sack 2 lands and then try to double block him to trade with him, and then you can like Gideon's Reproach, Complete Disregard. Titan's Presence will be a stretch at that point because your hand will probably be empty. Yeah. But you could Royal Spout or Clutch of the Cards to bounce a creature that's potentially going to block as well.
Yeah, the Bane here is one of the toughest cards I've seen in Limited to try to deal with. If they don't have the answer for it almost immediately, they just get taken over. And then of course it's exiling stuff, so you get to kind of fuel some of your cards that take advantage of the exile. So you even splash Complete Disregard for that fact. Talk about that engine as well.
Yeah, I have a Merc Strider, a Reclaimer, and a Blightherder to process with, and this deck is a little low on ways to actually exile things. I do have Complete Disregard, Titan's Presence, Benthic Infiltrator, and hopefully Ruination Guide will get in. I have ways to bounce to maybe get him in for 1 hit. Like Blightherder is just great. If I ever get to process that early, if I draw the Benthic Infiltrator and the Blightherder in conjunction, it's going to be very easy to cast some of this higher end stuff and kind of get an engine going on the higher end removal spells, or higher end creatures.
Okay. So we've got your deck here. Now talk about the format in general. Obviously you played this format at the Pro Tour, well not sealed, but draft. Talk about how much you've played, sealed and draft coming into this event.
I spent the last 2 weeks basically playing nonstop, and it seemed to go backwards. I was winning basically all the time at first, and now just started losing every time. So I don't know if anything changed in what I was doing. I was trying some new things this week. I'm kind of in the Owen school of never touch green cards, so I tried to do that a little bit to see if I could get it to work. It's not worth it.
Well, hopefully that fortune reverses. You know, are there any strategies you like coming into a sealed pool? Are there certain cards you're looking for or archetypes?
No, I think you just in general want to make sure that you have a good mix of bombs, removal, and creatures in the 3 to 5 mana category. Sometimes you just don't even want to play 2-drops because they're not really helping your plan. Like you want to play a couple just so you can trade with theirs so you don't get run over. But you want to make sure that you can play for a long game, and hopefully your deck is built in a way or provides you a way to have inevitability in that you're going to win a lot of the games that go 20 turns or 15 turns or whatever it is.
Your deck definitely looks like it has that. Lastly, before we wrap up, you only have the one black card, but you do have the splash with the swamp to help exert influence.
Yeah.
Were there any other cards you're considering trying to put in, or is it with, you mentioned no Evolving Wilds when you're looking at your pool. It's just kind of hard to do that.
Evolving Wilds is like actually one of the things that I do look for immediately when I'm building a sealed pool, because it helps you to play with the converge cards at, and splash any of your bombs. But the reason I'm splashing this, I wouldn't normally splash this Complete Disregard, but I already want to play another colored land because of the Exert influence. So at that point, I may as well just play one of my better spells that's off color, and hope to get a little lucky in drawing it when I do. And it does enable, like I said, a couple of the processes. So hopefully that'll pay off for me.
All right. Well, no games under your belt. Would you have a grade for this deck? Looking at it.
B-, C+. It's good, but it's got like holes in the curve, which is kind of an issue, and it does have a little too many expensive spells. I would ideally like to maybe cut one or two of the 5-drops and have one more 2-drop and an incubator drone, even just something that can shore up the ground so I can play for the long game a little better. I think that my biggest problem is going to be getting run over if people are playing aggressive decks, and I just get stuck with a 5-drop and a 6-drop and a 7-drop in my hand and die before I can cast them.
All right, well, you got a handful of buys coming up, so hopefully the deck can get you into day 2. Thanks for joining us here in the sideboard. Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action here in Atlanta.